Hi guys, it's Jordan from P&P Campers. Just going to do your handover video on your Swift 630L. So, sorry about the noise. I've had to leave it just here, sort of like half in, half out of the garage. So, we'll start under the bonnet. You've got your engine battery over here on the left-hand side. Brake fluid attached to the reservoir, the servo, at the back there. Power steering fluid sits in this reservoir at the front. Engine oil gets topped up through this cap just here. And your engine oil dipstick is that yellow one just there at the front of the engine. You then got your engine coolant, which sits up in this reservoir at the top. You see there it's cold at the moment. It's just on its max line, so that's perfect. You then got your washer fluid, which again is all being topped up as part of the service. You got a couple of fuses and relays and things like that in this box here and up here as well behind. But all that sort of stuff is all sort of Fiat related. You haven't got to worry about any of that. So that's nice and simple. Right, so we then got your freshwater inlet. So we're on the off side now. Freshwater inlet, so to actually get that to open, push in and round to the left and that'll open up. And then if you want to lock it up, in and round to the right, and then key in, turn it, pull it out. And then once you've done that, you can't take that out at all. So I'll leave that in a locked position. Your freshwater drain is inside the freshwater tank, which is just here underneath this seat, just there. So it's basically just like a bung inside the tank. Next locker is your toilet cassette locker. So you've got a freshwater flush, which is what this little pipe over here on the left-hand side is. So you need to have a little bit of water in your fresh tank if you want to be able to flush your toilet. But otherwise, you basically, to empty it, take this around and take it off, little yellow cap. And then when you empty it out, you need to hold down a little yellow button at the back. Whilst you do that, pop it away just like that. And if I show you, literally lift up on this little yellow tab to bring it out. Next locker is your gas locker. So it's a bit awkward because I can't actually open it all the way up, but basically all you need to know is you've got a bottle top regulator on there, and it's basically just you just wind it off when you finish with it if you want to change it over to a different bottle. Turning the bottle on at the top there is anti-clockwise to turn it on, and clockwise round to the right to turn it off. I've got it on at the moment just so I can show you a few bits working on the inside. Well, everything working on the inside actually. So you've got your bike rack and your ladder. They're all there as they should be. External gas point is this one just here. So you see you've got a little cap just down the bottom there to pop on if you want to, like that. So if you wanted a sort of like a barbecue outside plugging in or anything like that, that's where you plug into. Your wastewater drain is this one just down here. It's actually grey waste. So that's anything that goes down any of the sinks. It's not got anything to do with the toilet or anything. So if you wanted to drain out your wastewater, you just basically turn this dial here all the way around. You've then got your boiler vent, which is this one just here. You have got this cowl cover, C-A-W-L, not cowl, but cowl cover, to go over this. And basically what it does is like a winter cover or like a spider cover almost. If you sort of like leave this open to the elements, things will get inside there and kind of like, you know, cover up the little gas jets and things like that, and then they struggle to light up. So leave this off when you're going to light it up, but if you're not, just pop it back over it, and just make sure that it's really, really important you don't forget to take it off before you start trying to light it up. But yeah, you'll get used to that, it's no problem. Hookup point, so you see I've got a hookup plugged in at the moment just so I can show you a couple of bits in there, and also so I don't drain your battery out having all the lights on and all that sort of stuff. And the last sort of vents on the outside of these two just here, so these are your fridge vents. At the moment I've got the fridge lit up on gas, and the way to sort of double triply check that is to put your hand over the top of this right hand side, and basically this is where the gas exhaust is for the fridge. So me putting my hand over there like that is really, really hot coming out through the top. So you can sort of work out whether or not it's definitely lit by doing that if you want to. Your step comes out on this little switch just here. So if I press that, that goes all the way in and all the way out nicely. All of these little circular vents around the van as well, by the way, are your heating vents. So that's, I'll show you in a minute how it works, but when you turn your fan on the heater, this is where the air blows out through to. That one, and there'll be a couple more. There'll be one in the bathroom. So they're sort of dotted around all over the place. Right, so we'll start off on the inside with your control panel. So on the left-hand side here, you've got your battery selector. So if I put it into the middle to this little 0, which I'm not going to do because I've got all sorts of stuff on. If I put it up to the middle, that's what you would do if you were getting out of the van and leaving it, basically. So pushing this into the middle position is turning everything 12 volt off. If you went up all the way to the top to the little motorhome or to the little van symbol, then basically that changes everything over to being powered by your engine battery, which is something that you desperately do not want to do. If you do that, if you go all the way up to the top and then start using your fan and your lights and all that sort of stuff, what will happen is after a little while, your engine battery will go flat and then you'll be stuck because you won't be able to start the engine up. So I definitely would not advise you to do that. Leave it in the down position for the caravan, the leisure battery, if you can, at all times. If you're going to be using the van, go down to the leisure. If you're not going to be using the van, go into the middle to the off position. The next bit here, you've got two little sort of diagrams. So the top one, which says battery, you've got red, yellow and green. And that basically all the time just tells you how good your battery is. So I've got a hookup plugged in at the moment, and that's why it's all the way right at the very top of the green side. And so you can know then that your battery is definitely topped right up. If I press this button just here, you can then look at the bottom scale, your water scale, and you see there it'll go to just under half a tank. All right, so that's how you can check how much fresh water is in the tank. The next one is your pump switch. So when you're not using the pump, you're better off switching it off. But if you want to use your pump and start filling your boiler up and sort of pumping the water around the van, switch that to the on position. And then the last one over here is just lights, basically. So in fact, I think it's your awning light, if I remember. Yeah, well, it's your light switch, basically. So that's that. If I actually have a look in there. There you go. Thought so. So this little switch just here isn't actually all of your lights. You see there, it's got a little A in the symbol. So if you have a little look out there, if I press it off, there you go. Thought so. So that switch just there is actually just your awning light switch. All right, so I'll switch that off for now. The reason that wasn't working was because it was switched off just inside here on this little button. So if you wanted to have the awning light sort of permanently switched off, you can turn it off there if you want to. But I don't really see the point in that because you can just turn it on and off at the control panel. Right, so that is that. So that's your control panel. So like I said, the main thing's really straight down if you want to come in the van and start using your lights, back to the middle when you want to get out. If you're going to start using your boiler and start heating the water up and things like that, the first thing you want to do after that is switch your pump on. And this is obviously assuming that you've got some water in the fresh tank. So you've checked up there, checked your water level, and then you can come here to the tank, to the sink, and then basically just pull your tap. So go to the left, to the hot side, and just pull it through. Pump kicks in nicely. And you see there, basically, I've got good pressure. There's no air coming out. And then if I switch it off, pump turns straight off. So that means a couple of things. When the water comes through nicely on the hot side like that, it proves to you that your boiler is full of water. If the boiler didn't have any water in it at all, you'd just get air coming out. If you put the pump on, and then pulled your tap to the hot side, any of the taps, that is, in the bathroom as well, you wouldn't get any water coming out. So you need to make sure that you check that first. If you don't have anything coming out from here, just wait and leave it. I will also show you in a minute, you've got a boiler drain, which you need to know about. But basically, pull the tap and make sure that the water comes through nice and easily. And if it does, you know that your boiler's full, and then you can go ahead and start using it, which I'll show you how to do in a minute. All right, but that's really important to do that. If you try and light the boiler up with no water in it, it's pretty much the same as boiling an empty kettle, which, you'll sort of run into problems where it'll overheat and sort of, melt things. So you need to make sure it'll just get too hot, basically. Right, next thing, you've got your cooker. So you've got an ignition over here on this button. And what that does is it basically lights up any which one of these that you want. So this literal single button here does the grill ignition, the oven ignition, and all 4 burners at the same time. So depending on which one you actually want to light up, they've got a little symbol on each one. So obviously top left, bottom left, and so on. This one is the grill, this one is the oven. The grill obviously needs to be open a little bit when you're actually using it, but that's, you know, common knowledge. So that's the cooker. I don't need to show you how to do that because that's all pretty simple stuff. You do literally, it's just like any household cooker. So that's that. The fridge, I'll show you how to use that. So I've already showed you on the outside where you can put your hand over to double check that it's lit, but there is also another way which you might or might not prefer. You've got a little hole in there which you can probably see if I just zoom in a bit. See the little blue flame inside that hole? So basically that's what that is. I'll show you how to light it up in a minute, but I've got it lit at the moment, and you can look in that hole down there and that'll prove to you that it's lit up. If you can't see, sometimes when you leave these on for a little, so if I left this on for another hour, that little hole down there will get sort of condensated and you won't be able to see down it. So if you did forget whether or not it was on, or you know, for whatever reason you wanted to double check, you can put your hand over the outside as well. It's up to you. So let me switch it off now. I'll just switch it all the way off. So you've basically got this little bit in here which is your selector, and it's pretty simple. So I've got a hookup plugged into the van at the moment, so in my opinion I would say that the best way to heat it up, cool it down at the moment, would be to go one to the right facing this little symbol here, which means hookup. So as long as it's pointing towards this one here and you've got a hookup cable plugged in, basically some power will be drawn from the actual cable and your fridge will just cool down. Alright, it's basically got an element in the back of it and it will use so many amps to do it. So it's about half an amp actually it uses on this. If you had your engine running and the fridge was already cold, and I'll explain that in a minute, but if the fridge was already cold and your engine was running or you were driving, you would want to go down to this one just here which has the little battery symbol. And that's because the basically when you start the engine up, you've got a split relay, and so your engine battery gets charged up by your alternator, and then the engine battery sends power directly to your leisure. And so basically it means that leisure and engine battery both get charged up when you drive. The fridges work on this 12 volt button here because when the power is getting sent from the engine to the leisure battery, it can also power your fridge and keep that from working. The reason you need that is because you obviously can't drive around with a hookup plugged into the van, and you also can't drive around when you gas on, because you need to turn the gas off before you start driving. The 12 volt symbol isn't powerful enough on its own to get the fridge cold. So the fridge already has to be cold, and what that does is it basically holds temperature just for whilst you're driving, and then when you get to where you're going, switch back over to one of the other two, dependent on sort of whether or not you've got access to a hookup cable or not. If you don't have access to a hookup cable and you want to use gas, you basically just go all the way down to the bottom, open this up, have a little look down the hole, and then all you need to do is push in on this little button here, which is your gas, it sort of opens the gas opens the gas pipe up and allows the gas through, and then press on this button here, which is your piezo, so that's your igniter. So if I do that, see there, it's lit, and at the moment I'm just holding on to this for a second, and then I'll let go of it. Stays lit, and then you can just sort of forget about it and leave it. All right, so that's really important. The main thing with the fridges on the gas, if I just left it on the 240 volt, the hookup one here, you literally just choose that and leave it. But with the gas, you do have to sort of keep your eye on it for a second once you first light it up to make sure that it's definitely lit and stayed lit when you let go of this button. Every once in a while you'll find that you'll light it up and then you let go of this and then it will go out, and that's completely normal. All you need to do is just push back in again, light it up, just hold it in for a little bit longer and then let it come out, and then just, you know, keep your eye on it, make sure it stays on. I mean, once it's been on for about as long as it has been now, see, like, you know, for like 20 seconds or so, you can, that's fine, you know, you leave it, it won't go out then. But yeah, that's it. So the next thing is your heater. So this is your heater down here. It's a space heater. So it's nice and simple how it works. So basically you've got, I see there, it's a Truma Ultra Heat 230, so it must have a switch in here. Yep. Okay, so I'll show you about that in a minute. Right. So it works on gas and electric, this heater. So if you wanted to double check that it's definitely lit, you have a little look down that hole and you can see the flame in there. So it's so simple how you do it. So basically what you need to do is turn this little lever around to whereabouts it is now, push down on this little piezo igniter like that, keep your eye on this little hole and watch for it to light up. And what will happen is when you light it up when you're pushing down, you'll get a little pilot flame, and then when you lift up on this, the main flame will kick in, and then it will sort of carry on and just do its thing. It's very, very similar to the fridge. You just need to push it in, lift it up, and then the main flame will kick in. The only difference is, on these heaters, it's a bit more common for it not to stay lit the first time. So sometimes when you light it up, you do need to hold down on it for, you know, sometimes even sort of 20, 30 seconds before lifting it up so that it will stay on and stay lit. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with it, it just means that it's just how they work, to be honest. But that's it, that's how it works on gas. And when you want to turn it off, so I'll switch it off now. When you want to turn it off, all the way back round to the 0, and then just keep your eye in there, make sure that's definitely gone out, which it has, and that's it. So that's how you light it up on gas. You've also got a fan, which I showed you, didn't I? I showed you that little circular vent, which you got another one just here. And basically what that does is, I don't know if you can see it in there, but just, you see the little semicircle bit at the back there? That's the fan. So basically there's a big unit just in here with all these big fins on it, and the fan sits just behind it. And to turn it on, you basically put this little button here to the left, like I've done, and then just turn it up to wherever you want it. So obviously there it's at its maximum power, and it'll basically just start pumping all the hot air around to those little circular vents. Now I personally have always sort of advised people, as best I can, to leave that fan running for sort of 4 or 5 minutes after you've turned this off. Purely for the fact that these get so hot that if I turn that fan off now, the heat that comes off it is almost kind of like burning hot. And that's not really a problem because they are built to do it, obviously. I mean, a lot of these don't even have the fan on them. But in my opinion, having the fan there, I would leave that on for at least 5 minutes after switching this off. You absolutely cannot hang any clothes on this or anything like that to dry them off. It's way too hot. They will just burn. It's not like a radiator at home. There's no water inside it. It's literally just a flame and metal. So it's way too hot to put things on. You know, no socks or anything like that. It will just burn them. So make sure that you don't do that. Leave the fan running for a little bit afterwards, and you know, you'll be fine, basically. I also like the idea of leaving the fan running because it kind of pumps the air around a bit more evenly rather than just coming out just here. You know, if you leave the fan running, you've got air coming out down here, right down by the door. I'm pretty certain there'll be one in the bathroom. See, over there. So if I open that up, actually, there you go. Nice warm air coming into the bathroom now. All right, so that's just my opinion. I would leave that running for a little bit, so I'll leave that on now, actually. Right. So, in this wardrobe, it's a bit dark, so sorry about that. But, you've got a couple of important bits and pieces. So, on this left-hand side here, you've got this little switch that says space heater. So, if you switch this on when the hookup's plugged in, that'll then give you access to using this button over here which says ultra heat on it. All right, so basically this button here is how you heat the space heater up via the electric element, so without any gas or anything. So if I actually show, because I've got a hookup plugged in at the moment, I'll show you how that works. So if you have no gas whatsoever and you want to use it on electric, switch this button on here, and then come over to that switch and then choose either 500, 1000 or 2000. I don't know if you can see that. So if I choose 1000, like that, you basically then, after sort of 2 or 3 minutes, inside that little space heater there at the back is a couple of elements, in fact 3 elements, one 500, one 1000 and a 2000, and it'll basically just warm up. So that's how that works. That little switch in there that I showed you that I turned on is essentially just an isolator for that switch over there. All right, so make sure that you switch that off when you're finished with it, because if you forget to switch it off and plug a hook up into the van and don't turn that off, it can get a little bit, you know, you could start heating the van up and heating it up without even realizing you're doing it. So that's that. I also wouldn't advise to use it on 2000, purely for the fact that it uses about 8.5 amps worth of power. So for example, if I'll do it now because I've not got anything else on, go up to 2000. The hookup that I've got plugged in at the moment is rated to about 13 amps, if that makes sense. So basically, I've got a 13 amp hookup plugged in. I've got 8.5 amps being drawn just there because I'm on 2000. If I put the fridge on mains and I plugged a kettle in or a hairdryer or something like that, the likelihood is that you trip it because there's too much power running through that cable. Or if you're at a campsite, you might be plugged into a 10 amp pole, or even a 6, I think they do sometimes. You might be plugged into a 10 amp pole, try and switch this on to 2000, which is 8.5 amps, and it will just trip because it's too much power. So I would advise you don't go any higher than 1000. 1000 is plenty anyway, trust me. 1000 is about 4.5 amps. So yeah. But if you want to finish with that, back to the off position just there, and then you can go ahead and then switch off this button inside the wardrobe. So I'll turn that off. So that's the one that says space heater. The one next door to it says water heater. So that's that one. So basically, I'll obviously show you how to use it on gas in a minute as well. But if your boiler is full of water and you want to heat it up via the electric element only, switch that button on there. That draws about, I think it's about 3.5 amps or something like that. Or it might be 2.5. And yeah, essentially you literally just turn that button on there and then switch it off whenever you're finished with it. Nice and easy. And like I said, that's the one that will heat the water up. If you wanted to heat the water up via the gas, you can do that as well. And that's over here again. And it's this one underneath that says Ultra Store. So if you want to heat the water up via the gas, you basically just choose your temperature. So it goes from 30 all the way to 70. So you just say 50, for example. Turn it down on the outside like that. It'll light straight up. And then after about sort of 20 minutes or so, you have nice hot water at your taps. So in fact, I've had that on. I only switched it off just a minute ago. So I've had that on since we started the video. So if I just show you now. There we go. Nice warm water. I suppose you probably can't see it on the video, but it is working. So that's that. So if you want to heat your water up via gas, it's this switch down here which says Ultra Store. Make sure you switch it off. If you want to heat your water up via the electric element, you use this switch inside the wardrobe just here. It's really important, even more important than the space heater one, that you switch that one off when you finish with it. The reason for that is the space heater switch there, like I said to you, that's just an isolator for that switch over at the front. So switching that button on there doesn't do anything until you turn the button on up there and choose 500, 1000 or 2000. Whereas if you plug a hookup cable in and you've accidentally left that water heater switch on, whether your boiler's full of water or not, that will start heating up. So you need to make sure that you leave them both off whenever you're not using them. All right, that's really important. So I think that's about it for in there. You've got your RCD and MCBs in there. Oh, don't know if you can see that, sorry, it's a bit dark in here. But your trip switches are basically just inside here. And the only other thing is your charger, your battery charger, is just down there to the left of those switches. So, at the back of the van, so we've fitted your seat belt just there. So I've gone through right the way through the floor into the actual proper solid wood underneath under the van, and so they're nice and strong there. Tried to keep it as tidy as I possibly could, so you should be happy with that. Any issues with that, just let us know, and we'll sort of, you know, we'll help you out as best we can. Right, anything else in the back? I think so. So I've shown you the space heater. I'll turn that fan off now, actually. Right, bathroom. So where's the switch for in here? So you've got a pulley switch for the light in there. So you basically just got a nice simple bathroom, a normal little mixer tap just there, and also a mixer tap for the shower, which is obviously just up there. The whole room's like a wet room, so it doesn't really matter too much if you get things wet, but you have got this shower curtain which goes around on that runner there to use that. Your toilet, like I said to you, that is a freshwater flush, so you haven't got any sort of pink fluid to worry about. Push this button down, pump kicks in and basically just pumps around your flush fluid, and then you're draining it out into the cassette. Open it up, drains out into the cassette, and it's really important that you close that back up like that whenever you're finished with it, because two reasons. If you leave that open, basically you'll get a really bad smell coming into the van, because your toilet cassette is just, you know, open to the elements basically inside. But also, if you leave it in the open position, you won't be able to take the cassette out from outside. It completely locks it in place. So that's just something to work. It's to sort of bear in mind. Switch your lights off. So actually, I will just show you, just because it's worth showing. Under here is your freshwater tank. Now, I'll just point out as well, because I know we spoke on the phone about it, I was planning on fitting your seatbelt just here, because I thought there'd be a bit of space down the side. But yeah, there wasn't. Not enough space, unfortunately. So yeah, so I think that's about it, really.